Welcome to Riders of the Reel. I'm Emilio,
I'm Adam.
and we're going to be taking you through the movie review, The Boy and the Heron, Miyazaki's last film that he made, most recent. We're going to be taking you through the biggest shocks, disappointments, and fun facts of it, and more to come in this episode.
Heck yeah, let's get right into it. Could be his last film, we shall see.
Yes.
But what are just your initial thoughts? How'd you feel about the movie? Positive, negative, and yeah.
I think very positive on this one right off the bat. I will say it is, to me, I've needed the most watches to feel like I'm grounded in it compared to the rest of his movies. I think it is the most complicated and complex. More so within the like little bits of dialogue they reveal, and obviously his visuals. He's very revealing within that. But I will say it's one of my favorites because of how beautifully captivating it is from start to finish. I mean, I don't think I've seen such a inspirational, or not even a captivating intro
Yeah.
where you're immediately pulled into the fear of his mother dying in this fire. And the way they filmed it, and they had the animation going with the figures almost acting as spirits, like burning away in the fire as ashes, and he's running through the lighting in the fire. Like
Yeah.
I think that was such a beautiful touch on that. I was curious. That was my first just initial brief things of what
Yeah.
I've enjoyed a lot with it. I'd love to hear what you think.
Yeah. Yeah, no, the movie starts deep like that, just like really intense. So this is my first rewatch since seeing it in theaters 3 years ago. I think it came out in 2023 now, so it's been a while. But my initial watch, it was mad confusing, and I won't lie, after this, it's still a bit confusing. I think you need a good understanding of Miyazaki's life and who he is, and a lot of his works and just Studio Ghibli's works, because there's a lot of representation in this film of his past movies, from Easter eggs to comparisons to things that, frame by frame are similar to his old movies. That's kind of hard to understand if this is like the first anime film you're like watching. So you definitely want to watch a couple like starter Ghibli films, I'd say,
Yes.
before diving into this one, or it probably won't make sense. But on rewatch and doing some more like research on Miyazaki, it made a lot more sense this time around, and I have a lot more of a positive outlook on it.
Yeah, I agree. You definitely need to be very Miyazaki, like, fiend. You have to be totally invested into his movies
Yeah.
to really dive into this one. And I think a lot of it has to play into. um, I feel like there's notes of his life being told in here. As always, he, reaches into Japanese lore or history. So there's a lot of different things that might not be as like relevant to what we might understand. So that's where I think a lot of it you have to research or kind of study and reflect on from his other films to take note of what he's truly trying to tell. But I will say the themes come very clear to me, at least the main ones. It's a very heavily theme on acceptance and loss, and the same thing he always brings in that childlike element where it's someone having to grow and adapt to the changes around them. Similar to what we did last week when we talked about Spirited Away. So I just think this one needs more of that in-depth approach. For instance, just off the top of the bat, I'm going to talk about my biggest shock because it relates to something that's of this Japanese folklore. I researched and learned that herons in Japanese folklore are associated with death, afterlife, other worlds. So
Yeah.
similar to how the gray heron is depicted in the movie as a guide for Mahito through accepting the death of his mother and taking him to this new world. So I thought that was a really interesting touch that, like, these are things I might not have known about unless I did that heavy research. But
Yeah.
I thought that was a beautiful touch to viewers that might not know it too, or if you didn't.
No, yeah, I had no idea. I mean, and that's something you don't necessarily need to know, but you telling me that just enhances like just like that dynamic between the boy and the heron, between Mahito and I don't even know what the heron's name was, if
I
he even had a
know.
name.
I feel like they just call them the heron.
Yeah.
I think the whole time.
and we could get in like the deeper themes later, but I just wanted to touch on something that could be like a big draw to people that haven't seen this is the cast and the voice acting. There's a lot of familiar names and they all do a stupendous job. Like a standout for me, and we talked about him as a standout in our last or 2 episodes ago with the Odyssey, is Robert Pattinson as the Heron. You, I would have never known that that was Robert Pattinson as the Heron. Just
He, I,
insane.
I would try making a voice right now, but I know I would hurt the audience if I did, so I will not try replicating Robert Pattinson's Heron voice.
It's
Your
like
presence is requested. No,
kind of
something
like a Green Goblin sort of maybe
yeah.
from Spider-Man, like kind of like that vibe, but yeah, just not recognizable at all, and really gave that Heron like this annoying but like freaky, like I don't know, he like really put his all into it.
Yeah. No, he totally did. And it's also credit, I know, they're not as big of parts, but Christian Bale is the father.
Yeah, Mark
There's a couple other
Hamill,
Mark Hamill. Oh, he's
he's the grand
fantastic as the
uncle.
grand. Hmm.
Yeah, Dave Bautista was the King
Yes.
Parakeet,
Hmm.
which was
The
hilarious.
I'm forgetting her name, but she was in Midsommar, and she was
Florence Pugh,
Florence. Yeah, she was
Kiriko.
Kiriko. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, there's just that's some big names, and I guess, like, they're all gonna give it their all because you don't know when the next time you're gonna be in a Miyazaki movie, so it's probably an honor to do that.
No, totally. I wonder too if you get to like keep like an extra thing that Miyazaki like draws you. Like he draws a thing of your character, and because you filmed and helped voice, it, he's like, here you go. There's got to be some type of like just being a part of that incentives.
Yeah, but the voice cast definitely helps. It wasn't even, like, needed because it was already just such, like you were saying, just a captivating movie visually. Soundtrack, again, was just amazing. It's that same guy, Joe Hiyashi, that does all the
Hmm.
soundtracks for Miyazaki, so
Yeah, this is I when we were talking last week about the music. This is the one I have the most like songs followed. I think I have the fletching song when he's like fletching the arrow, which is also one
yeah.
of the most like unique sequences too. I love the little feather that ends up having its like own mind of its own. Feather or flight number 7, flight feather 7.
Yeah.
So good. What else is something that would you say?
So, it's just more everything that's, like, going on. I mean, it gets, like, really like, it escalates quickly once him and the older version of Kiriko go into that tower and get immersed into this world. So many different things are happening, and there's just so many, like, interpretations you can, like, give on a lot of these things happening, from the pelicans and the Wada Wada to him finding the younger version of Kiriko and going out fishing and just all these things. And it's just like, okay, well, like, I don't really know what I'm following. I thought this was a movie about a kid and his mother passed away and he's grieving. So,
Yeah, that was something I agree. The first like 3 times I watched this film, every time I literally would like pause the film and I'd try being okay, what is like the point of this being here? What does it mean? And that it was until recently when I was rewatching it again. Do you remember when the first Pelicans talking? It's like William
William
Defoe.
Dafoe, yeah, the
Defoe,
Green
yeah.
Goblin.
So when he's talking and bringing up, I like we didn't choose to be in this world, but we have to. We have hunger and we have to feed ourselves. To
Yeah,
me, it was starting to click when the Grandmaster was talking about his whole interpretation was he felt like he had to create a perfect world in this area because the other worlds outside were full of malice. And so in this world, he brought creatures that were never supposed to be here and touched his own malice. Because if we each think about each of us has malice and none of us is perfect in this world.
yeah,
And so as him being the creator of these creatures that we're seeing, even though it's not reflecting, they have this form of malice. And I think that's where it connects into the story, even though it's not reflecting with the loss of his mother. It's reflecting with him being pertinent to taking over this position of keeping this world together. And I think it's an acceptance of him understanding malice and what he has to accept in the world of that rather than living a fake one.
yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, I'll definitely there's like a quote at the end with like the malice that we could get to like I think like the deeper themes or like a little longer conversation. Is there anything that like stood out to you in like a I don't know, like more comedic way or just like just sticks out scene
Yeah.
wise?
It's, I'm a sucker for the wada wada. I love a guy. He always has some little creatures in it, and when they're just, like, bouncing around, and then there's just something about it, them all huddling up with their, like, servings to get their food.
Yeah.
He does such just, like, silly, goofy things, and
Yeah.
then I remember the first time I watched it, I don't know, I had the thought, I was like, "What if these things, like" they gotta be some sort of, like, creature that's, like, moving up on the world, and when they brought up that, like, they're like little babies, I'm like, I knew it. I knew there was some element
Yeah.
of, like it was a unique way of being like, "These
Yeah.
are the unborn babies ready to get up into the world."
Yeah, like new souls and yeah, that scene's just wild in general, like when the pelicans and then you just love the Wada Wadas, they're so
Yeah,
cute. You're just like enjoying everything and then these pelicans just start swooping them up. You're like, "No." And you hate the pelicans, but then you talk to the William Dafoe pelican, it's like, "Oh, okay, I kind of feel bad for him, but still don't eat
but
the
still
Wada
don't feel that
Wadas."
bad, yeah, and I still hate the pelicans low key.
But yeah, that's
What was
funny.
something what was something that you really enjoyed or,
Yeah. I
was a
only brought
favorite
this
part
up
about
because I
it?
wanted to bring this one up. Like towards the end there the Heron and Ma what is his name? Mahito?
Mojito,
Yeah,
yeah.
Mahito. They're just like in the castle, the parakeets, like he's captured and the heron kind of comes and saves him and it's just like so funny like the parakeets are just so like stupid and they're just like bashing these parakeets in the head
Yeah,
and like sneaking around he's like in this like fake parakeet costume and Mojito's just like under a giant pot and they're just like still just bashing their heads like
downstairs.
it's like a beginner difficulty video stealth game and I don't know why I was just
Yeah.
all the parakeets in general are just hilarious how they just want to like chow food, chow those people, and
The
I don't
parakeets,
know.
just freak me out so much.
Yeah.
But no, you're so right. And that whole sequence, I love like when they first do hitting on the head with like the bone.
Yeah.
I'm watching, I'm like, oh, but it kind of makes sense because they have that huge like basket of food in front of them, so they like can't see. And I'm like,
Yeah.
visually, yeah, no, this is pleasing to see like that. It makes sense, but it shouldn't almost how like
Yeah.
absurd it is. The one thing that I found was so funny though during that sequence is throughout the whole movie, like, whenever you see lighting, it's all, like everything's lit candle lit. Like, there's no electricity. But yet,
Yeah.
once they're, like, escaping, like, hidden under the stuff, you see a
Yeah.
neon light, like, where the pelicans are or the parakeets are eating
Parakeet.
their food down their staircase. On the wall to the left, there's, like, this pink neon sign, and I'm like, "When did they get electricity in this building? Why
Yeah.
is everything else lit by lit by regular lights?" So,
I
I don't
didn't
know if that
notice
was
that.
I don't know if that's like a deep thing that's
Yeah.
there, but I was like, interesting.
So there's like a deeper meaning behind this, obviously, depending on how you interpret it. A lot of people think it's Miyazaki's life in general. Some people just think it's like all his movies meshed together. And then some people think that some of these characters in the movie are directly related to like either Miyazaki or people in his life. How do you or who do you interpret some of these
Mm,
characters as, such as Mahito, the grand uncle, the Heron, for instance?
okay. That's a good question. I would say it took me I think it was my second watch, and again, I was reflecting on it more. To me, it feels like a love letter almost to obviously his whole career, and also, like, because I see, him as the great-grand uncle. I see Miyazaki. And I see this world that he's created as all the different wonderful journeys he's taken on throughout his animated movies as depicting that because even though he's admitting that there's malice just in the world, like everything that we see in this world that he created is beautiful. I mean, the parakeets going and they're like, it's this paradise and stuff. Like, so
Yeah.
he's still reflecting that, like, a lot of the stuff he created is beautiful, but I think he's being realistic to himself that he has malice. We all have malice and sin. I almost want to say that Mahito is his son because I've read before in the past that they've had, it's part of their relationship fall apart when he asked his son to make Tales of Earthsea, I believe, was the movie he
Yeah,
wanted him to direct. And his son, I want to say, I'm forgetting his son's name.
I think Goro,
Goro? Yeah. I think
something
his
like
son
that.
was saying that he didn't feel prepared for it and it wasn't getting
Yeah,
the full advice he wanted from his father. And I almost feel like this was like an apology to his son. Um, in a way, and it might
yeah,
not be that could be me diving in too deep to it, but to me, it seemed like he missed out on a lot of his kid's life because of he was like so busy with this stuff.
yeah,
So it felt like this was him putting himself in his child's life and having that reflection that he wanted to give like this whole Studio Ghibli to his son to take over, and yet his son that's not something maybe he wants to follow, and that's okay. I think that's
yeah,
and whether that's the case or not, I think it's a good life example that whether it's a parent to a child, a friend to another friend, that we can't put our own expectations on others and expect them to do something. I think we have to let other people choose to live their lives, like find their own way rather than
yeah,
expunge
yeah,
that onto them. So that was my interpretation from it, especially towards the end. The Heron, it's tough.
yeah,
I don't have much inspiration of knowing that. I do feel like it felt like another character though from one of his movies, almost like um, Spirited Away. But I think it was supposed to be a spiritual guide. I feel like in maybe
yeah,
Japanese history, it's supposed to be that like aftermath of like, this is how you can live by the challenges and be like suffer with certain things in life, or this is how you can accept things and learn how to grow from what's dealt in your life as
yeah,
almost being like, let me help be a turning point. But as since I did, I was curious if you had any thoughts or
yeah,
what was your take on that as well between those three.
yeah. I mean, I like what you just said. That 100% makes sense. And again, I don't think there's any one right answer, and that's again what's cool about Miyazaki's films. His relationship with his son, like all that makes sense. I know his son Goro like doesn't want to do it necessarily, and Miyazaki doesn't really have a predecessor to take over the studio. Essentially, he's like 82 years old, still hasn't found someone to take over. Essentially, and it's sad to see. And so, in terms of who I think these characters represent, I do think the Grand Uncle or Grandmaster represents Miyazaki, and he's trying to find someone to take over, and he has those 13 blocks, which I could ask you about this in a second, but I think they
Mm,
represent the 13 movies slash short
yeah.
films that he's made. He's made 12 like big movies, and then there's one short film that he made. So I think the 13, that number kind of lines up. So he has those
Yeah.
13 blocks that represents that. And I think Mojito represents like us, us as fans of film and creative people. And, everyone has the ability to be creative, whether they think they are or not, whether draw, create, film, build. We all have an imagination. And I think Miyazaki wants, us as people to essentially take over and, use our imagination and be that next generation of filmmakers, of just, imaginative people.
Yeah. No, that's truly
Yeah, I don't know if
fascinating
that
because
makes sense.
no, it totally does to me. And I didn't think about it that way, but I can see it totally through that point of view as well. And I think it's because, especially if you're going that route, saying that it's like leading it to the audience and other creative storytellers, it feels like obviously the world he created is going to be end at some point. Like no
Yeah,
one will make movies exactly like he did.
yeah,
And I think that's almost a representation of the stone being destroyed and that world being destroyed. But like how you were saying, especially if we resemble Mahito, how he comes back into the real world with one stone, he can now make his own world, his own or his own identity. It doesn't even
yes,
have to be a
yeah,
world. So he can choose to live in a creative stance that Miyazaki's done, or he could choose to be a gardener. He could choose to be like just however we want to resemble in those points of
Yeah.
life. But I do
Yeah.
think now that you bring that up, that's a very interesting point and a beautiful take. I like that.
Yeah, no, I think for, like, a broader audience, it, like, makes a little more sense as, like, a metaphor versus, like, Miyazaki's direct, like, autobiography, which, again, it could have been that way, but not a lot of people, not everyone can directly relate to that, but we can relate to, being creative and, appreciating this art, and, I think he says, the granduncle says to Mahito a line, something like, "Create beautiful worlds untainted by malice." So the malice thing again. So we all have the ability to create as people, but we're probably never gonna avoid the malice part, whether it's criticism or fear of like losing or insecurities. Like you just have to put yourself out there and build, take that block and start your world, your identity.
Hmm. Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think we all have, I think Mahito's scar can be a big, metaphor for all of us in life too. Cause obviously, like, that was something he did physically and he talks about it metaphorically too in that aspect. But we all have scars, physical or literal, um, spiritual or mental. And I think it's healthy of us to always keep a healthy mind that we aren't perfecters and we shouldn't look for perfection in things. Not that we can't strive to do it, but we should be accepting of just wanting to get better every day, just wanting to find our purpose in life, but not being unrealistic and letting those things hold us down. So I think there is a healthy attribute to understanding our own struggles that hold us back.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's a deep movie, and that's
It's
why like initially it was confusing for me because like one, I didn't view it in that point of view, I guess. I am like a very literal thinker. So like if you're trying to find like this exact answer, you're not gonna find it. So like if you're a person out there like that, you can't go into this movie like it. You just have to go in like almost as like someone who's creating art and free flowing and whatnot.
Mhm. Yeah, 'cause each frame reveals something so different than what it's saying on the surface level. Like, it's a puzzle piece, almost in the end.
Yeah.
And that's where I mean, I even think there was some elements I don't know if you've seen some of his other films, but I'm forgetting another one. There's one where it's like an aviation one.
Yes, The
As
Wind
the time
Rises,
the wind
maybe?
rises, yeah. He has such good moments of focusing on, like, what the destruction of war can do and the harm of it, and I think he almost had a little play into it with the parakeets, and it almost felt kind of to the same extent of, like, funny enough, Odyssey, when we saw with Cersei and the warriors there, with war, like,
Yeah,
you see and before they go on their journey, you see these people pillaging, these war they're not veterans, but the actual soldiers right there doing certain things that aren't healthy to do. And I think we
yeah,
see a little bit of that with the parakeets when they are in the blacksmith and we learn that they ate the blacksmith. They're pillaging this person's home. And it goes to reflect in the same thing that it's because they don't belong here. There's malice. But I think there was a little tie in to keep a reflective thought for the audience of the consequences of what that can do. We see even when they're cheering on Dave Batista, the Parakeet
yeah,
King, and it's comedic, but you can also like tell that it sounds so absurd and like insane, kind of the way they're chanting. I'm like,
yeah,
I can't root for these parakeets, but like I can laugh
yeah,
at it, like, and I think
yeah,
it's intentional that he was doing all that stuff. So there's just all these little elements that he can throw in within it. And did you find anything that you were thinking of too?
yeah. We brought up the Wada Wada earlier, but after like my new take on like the overall metaphor of the movie, you could kind of see like this the Wada Wada as like creativity in general, like this new creative ideas, these ideas you get and they start sparking up and coming to the surface, and maybe the pelicans kind of represent like all the hardships that come in and a lot of ideas don't even get through like that first stage of getting on the paper and I don't know, it's just a lot. This movie is just, to me, is just all about just creativity and just
Hmm.
being yourself, which is interesting because then I don't know really how like the grief kind of ties in with his the loss of his mom and everything, because that kind of is like a back burner in my head once I start talking about all these things. So
Hmm. Yeah, I do think it's a strength, but it's also kind of a flaw. Like how much he's able to tell in this story, but how much it's connected, but it does feel like it's not meeting on every level, like you're saying.
yeah,
Because I can go one topic and I forget about the other, kind of a little bit.
yeah,
But I do think that's a very unique idea. Now I'm thinking like, is the fire like when Lady Himi like burns everything? Is that
yeah,
kill your own darlings for creatives? Like when you have to like that's like a term in screenwriting when you're writing something, you're like you have to just what you wrote was bad, so you have to take that out. Like is that just like you have writer's block where you
yeah,
can't do, and then you have that which is like just burn it all. But no, I do think a lot of it is just him pouring all of his creative like energy into it. Um, I do wonder if part of it also was him reflecting on maybe his relationship with his mother. I don't know much about that, but I think she passed away when he was like 42, so she didn't die
yeah,
young,
yeah.
relatively. But part of me was thinking that could be something he played into it too. I
And then
did. Oh yeah, sorry.
um the book that Mahito finds,
Yeah.
the how do you
Hmm.
live? I think it's titled. I think that's
Yes.
how the film's titled in Japan,
Hmm.
or like in Asian companies. We Got the Boy and the Heron. I kind of like How Do You Live better as a title, but that's like a kind of ties into all these themes too. Just how are you deciding to live with your identity and take your creativity and make these things your own. So
Yeah, and I think how we're even talking about it right now is like just a perfect example of how do you live. I mean, we're bringing up similarity things, but we're also talking about very different ideas of what we were thinking with the movie. So I
yeah,
think how do you live is there's no one clear cut answer because life isn't that easy for everyone. Everyone goes through a different challenge or obstacle in life. I do think there are certain things that can help you, like, find purpose in life, but I don't think anyone has the same journey. So I think that's the perfect how do you live? I mean, I would have
yeah.
preferred that title, honestly.
Yeah, no,
I
it's
liked it.
sick. It makes you think. The Boy and the Heron's funny just because the heron is just like out of this world. But
I was curious what your thoughts. I have some thoughts on this sequence, the delivery room. I know we're getting close with it, but the delivery room. Did anything cross your mind on the reaction? It's when she Natsuko is laying down with the
oh
paper thing.
yeah, give me your take because
So, because some people I've talked with are like, why is she yelling at like Mahito? Like that's totally not her character. And
yeah,
I've had the same thought too before, and I could this is my interpretation now of it, but it felt like it obviously wasn't her. It felt like it was the world testing Mahito. Is he gonna let the fear of like who he wants now to be his mother and her like
yeah,
screaming at him like kick him like scare him away and realize that he doesn't want to be here? Or is he
yeah,
gonna keep fighting for her, realize that she does matter in his life, and it's to that moment when he fully says like mother, like I'm not like leaving you mother, and then she snaps out of it. That was something that like when I was watching it again, it always hits emotionally.
yeah,
The and seeing oh gosh, Lady Himi, his mother
yeah,
when she was younger there, it's always such an emotional impact because you're seeing literally the different linears between younger version who realizes that this is her kid to choosing the new mom and the acceptance, but not
yeah,
forgetting. So,
yeah. No, yeah, that is some deep stuff. And Mahito just already had that fear of losing people because he lost his mom. Not even sure if this new mom will accept him, and if she does, will he lose her too? Just yeah, some deep stuff, and just I don't know how that directly relates to Miyazaki's life, but
mm,
either way, it just makes for a good story.
yeah, I think it makes for like those who have experienced loss find those ways to feel like not alone in those moments,
Yeah. Yeah, these kids in
which is
these
perfect.
Ghibli films are always just like going
They
through
just,
like years of
oh
experience
my
in like
gosh,
one
yeah.
film, just putting them through the through the burners. Like,
I know. Just express mode.
yeah,
Yeah, you're 13, now you're 18. Sorry, go on.
pretty much. On that note, an overall out of 10 rating, what are you giving The Boy and the
Ah,
Heron?
I love this one a lot. I feel like I personally reflect and relate on it more than what we talked last week, but I will give it a 9.
Okay. I'd say when I first watched it, I was in like the sevens. After this second rewatch and knowing more about everything, the number that popped in my head was 8.8. So not bad.
Point 8.
I think it'll only go up in time. The more rewatches and the more you familiarize with the Ghibli universe and the world and mind of Miyazaki, I think this film will age really well.
I agree. It's a great touch with it.
Yeah. So on that note, thank you everyone for watching the Riders Reels podcast. I'm Adam.
I'm Emilio,
Thanks for
and
watching. Please like, subscribe, comment below how The Boy and the Heron made you feel, your interpretation, or the metaphor of the film in general. We'd love to hear what you think. And until next time, thanks for joining us for the ride.
see you then.
Peace.
Peace.